Hello fellow duelists, my name is VideoJames, and we're back with another deck profile. So, as I said, I'm getting this one recorded, and it will be out either today or tomorrow. I'm recording it a day behind just because yesterday I was absolutely drained in the afternoon. I legitimately could not get any work done just because I was absolutely tired, and I just couldn't convince myself to get any kind of work done except for meaningless typing. So, today I'm going to get this recorded. I'll try and get it edited and out Friday. It'll probably get pushed back to Saturday. I know, I promised it would be out Friday, but it will probably end up being Saturday when it gets out, because some new stuff came up, and it's gonna take me a little bit longer than expected to get done with that. So I have to do that, and then this will be able to get edited and put out. Regardless, as you can see, it's another Stardust Dragon deck profile. You guys know I did the first Assault Mode deck profile, I think by now probably about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4, and that got overwhelmingly positive feedback on it, and people really seem to love Stardust just as much as I do, that people are actually loving to have Stardust back in the game. And I've actually fought a few Stardust decks in YGO. I actually fought a Stardust with my Stardust, so that was kind of fun to deal with. But yeah, I'm glad this deck is so well liked, and I'm glad it's getting the use it deserves, because Assault Mode really does need to get that use. Now that it actually has support, it needs to get that use to show that we actually do still care about Assault Mode. So yes, and there's been new support for this deck that came out. Not a whole lot of support, but there has been a little bit of new support, and some stuff has come out. Or not some stuff has come out, but some stuff has been switched in the deck that I feel like benefits it a little more. So we're going to be seeing some of that too. Again, no replays. Again, couldn't get a hold of my source, but there is music going on in the background, so it's not just me. And I will also be posting, again, the ban list in the description, because this is post-2019 ban list for October. This is actually probably going to be post-ban list for a while, because I think the next one isn't going to be out until January 13th, which, who knows with Konami, because they change that so often that it's barely ever reliable. Regardless, let's get into this deck profile, and let's start with the main man himself, 3 Stardust Dragon Assault Mode. This thing is my favorite control monster of all time, in all honesty. Like, this thing is, not only is it a control, but it's a troll control. So basically, Stardust Assault Mode is a level 10 Dragon Wind monster with 3000 attack and 2500 defense, putting Stardust for once on equal playing ground with Blue Eyes, and it has the effect of can't be normal summoned or set, and must be special summoned first with Assault Mode activate, and can't be special summoned by other ways except by its own effect. So basically it says, yeah, unless you're using my effect or Assault Mode activate, you can't get me on the field. And that's a kind of thing with all Assault Mode monsters, that unless you use Assault Mode activate or their own effects to summon them, then they can't really be used in order to summon with stuff like Monster Reborn, Back to the Front. Pretty much every Reborn card won't work. Fortunately, Stardust Dragon Assault Mode's effect is pretty baller. So basically what it does is, whenever an opponent activates a card or effect that isn't a counter effect, because Stardust Assault Mode is too slow to counter that, you can tribute Assault Mode to negate that activation and destroy that card, and then during the end phase, if that effect activated and wasn't negated, then Stardust Dragon can actually come back from the graveyard. So it's basically Assault Mode saying, I'm going to negate that, and then I'm going to come back during the end phase if you do nothing to stop it. Cool? Cool. And it also has the effect of, when it's destroyed, you can target one Stardust Dragon in your graveyard, and bring that back from the graveyard. So it essentially not only is an extreme control, but if it gets knocked out, big if, then you can just use Stardust Dragon and bring that back, and then you'll have another dragon ready to just Assault Mode. And then we also have Assault Mode's less popular brother, Red Dragon Archfiend Assault Mode. This one I see a lot less use. I have seen it in at least 1 or 2 Red Eyes decks, and I've seen it in some Archfiend decks, but I don't really see it that often, mainly because I don't think many people play Red Dragon Archfiend. They more play just Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, and more tend to play the Stardust kind of wear. So basically, same deal as Assault Mode, level 10 Dragon Dark, 3500 attack and 2500 defense, and it can't be normal summoned or set, and it has to be special summoned with Assault Mode activate. And if it attacks, it destroys all of the monsters after damage calculation. So your monsters, your opponent monsters, everything's gone. But if Archfiend Assault Mode is destroyed, then you can special summon Red Dragon Archfiend from your grave. Now this actually combos off well with Stardust Dragon Assault mode, which I'll get into a little later. And then for the Assault monsters, we have Assault Beast and Assault Sniper. Basically these guys are just to get your synchro combos out. That Assault Beast, level 4 Beast Warrior, 1900 attack and 1200 defense. You don't really care about his attack and defense, because he's not staying on the field. In fact, he should never even get on the field for more than 2 seconds. Basically what he does is you can discard him to the graveyard and add one Assault mode activate from your deck to your hand. So he's basically your searcher of your key into the engine of this deck. And then Assault Sniper is essentially your way of getting out your Synchron or your tuner. I don't know why I said Synchron, mainly just probably because of Stardust, and I'm thinking of Junk Synchron. So you can tribute him, special summon one monster from your hand or deck, specifically lists Assault mode activate in its text, except for Sentinel, or of course one of the Assault modes. And for the rest of the turn, you can't special summon monsters from the extra deck, except for Synchros. And you can target one face-up monster you control, reveal one Synchro monster in your extra deck, and that monster that you targeted becomes that type of the Synchro monster. So say I targeted Shooting Star Dragon and Kinka-byo, well Kinka-byo would become a wind monster. Or say I targeted Trishula and Archfiend Assault mode, Archfiend Assault mode would become a water type. So yeah, he's basically your main combo into Psi-Reflector, which is the most important monster in this deck, aside from the actual main monster of the deck. And we are running 3 of him, and the reason we're only running 2 Assault Beast and we're running 3 Snipers is because while Assault Beast is useful, there's too many ways to search Assault mode activate in this deck for him to actually be able to be run at 3 without being cloggy. As a matter of fact, sometimes 2 is a little cloggy, because there's been like, I think at least 1 instance where I dead drawn into Assault Beast and just not been able to go anywhere. So yes, 3 Psi-Reflector, the tuner of the deck, the main man, the boss of this deck. So basically what this does is when it is normal or special summon, you can add one Assault mode activate or one card that specifically lists Assault mode activate from your deck to your hand, except for Psi-Reflector. And you can reveal one Assault mode activate in your hand, then target one monster in your graveyard that specifically lists Assault mode activate in its text, except for Psi-Reflector, and special summon that monster. Then you can increase that monster's level between a number of 1 and 4. So this guy is mainly used to just bring out your Synchro monsters, especially your Stardust, that most of the time you're going to have either Sniper or Beast in the graveyard, and you're just going to use Reflector, Reveal, and Assault mode activate, and then use the Reflector to bring back either of them as a level 7, and then just immediately Synchro into Stardust Dragon. And then with Psi-Reflector Sidekick, we have 3 Kinka-byo. This thing is actually really useful in this deck, and it actually has brought out a lot of combos. But anyway, Kinka-byo is a level 1 spirit monster. It is a beast dark type, and it cannot be special summoned, but when it is normal summoned or flipped face up, you can target one level 1 monster in your graveyard and special summon it, but you have to banish it when Kinka-byo leaves the field. And like all other spirit monsters, Kinka-byo has an effect of once per turn during the end phase, when it was normal summoned or flipped face up, you have to return it to the hand. So essentially, if you use to bring back Psi-Reflector, then Kinka-byo during the end phase is going to make Psi-Reflector get banished if it's still on the field. But if Psi-Reflector is in the graveyard, then Kinka-byo's effect no longer applies to it. So it does actually work as just kind of bringing back a Synchro material and just keeping Kinka-byo as like that reserve in case you can't get out Sniper or some way to get out Psi-Reflector. And then moving on to the support monsters, there are substitutes you could do for these, but for the purpose of this deck, these are actually the best options. Like, you don't really want to swap anything. There's potential to swap into some things, but you really just want to keep these monsters. So we have 2 Psi-Framegear Gamma and 1 Psi-Frame Driver. So basically, if you don't know, Psi-Frame Driver is just a normal psychic monster of the Psi-Frame archetype, and he is a level 6 with 2500 attack and 0 defense. And Psi-Framegear Gamma is actually a tuner, level 2, with 1000 attack. I'm pretty sure by now most of you have seen where I'm going to go with this. So basically what Gamma does is it can't be normal summoned or set, and it has to be special summoned by a card effect. And when your opponent activates a monster effect while you control no monsters, you can special summon Psi-Framegear Gamma and 1 Psi-Frame Driver from either your hand deck or graveyard to your field, negate the activation of that opponent's monster's effect, and if you do, destroy that target. So it is essentially a Ghost Ogre, but it provides you with Synchro materials. And a lot of time you want to save it for your turn if you can, because then using its effect, you can immediately go into a Synchro, and you can keep PSY-Frame Driver around in case you manage to pull out into that other Gamma. And there is a combo that you can get with these that actually does work really well, but we'll go into that later at the end, just like the one combo with Archfiend Assault Mode and Stardust Dragon Assault Mode. And then moving on to the spell section, we have 1 Assault Mode 0. This thing is literally the best counter to Assault Mode Activate that there is, because if you don't know, Assault Mode Activate is very limited. It only lets you Synchro Summon, or not Synchro Summon, it only lets you Special Summon an Assault Mode by tributing a Synchro monster on your field, and the Assault Mode has to be in your deck, which it used to mean if you drew an Assault Mode, then that Assault Mode was just in your hand and you could do nothing with it. So what 0 does is it lets you tribute 1 Synchro monster to Special Summon 1 Assault Mode monster from your hand, whose name includes the tributed monster, and it is treated as a Special Summon with Assault Mode Activate. So it basically treats itself as Assault Mode Activate, and it lets you Special Summon from the hand. And during your main phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard to set 1 Assault Mode Activate directly from your hand or deck, and, here's the best part, it can be activated the turn it's set, but you can only use each effect of 0 once per turn. This is an extremely beneficial card just because not only does it give you an out to having an Assault Mode in your hand that you can't really summon with Activate, but it also gives you a free Activate so that you can keep 1 in your hand to use Psi-Reflector's effect, because you are going to be able to recycle Reflector a lot with this deck. So having an Assault Mode Activate in your hand without having to use it is very beneficial. And then moving on to what I would consider the search part of the spells, we've got 3 Assault Teleport. This card is very, very good at drawing for this deck. It's its main source of draw power. So basically what it does is it lets you return 1 Assault Mode monster from your hand to your deck to draw 2 cards. And again, that helps out with this deck a lot because we're only running 1-0. We don't really want to run more than 1, because then it kind of just overrides Assault Mode Activate, and neither one is really more useful than the other, but since most of the time you're not going to want to draw into an Assault Mode, you're going to want to use Assault Mode Activate. And just because Assault Mode Activate is required for Psi-Reflector, you do kind of need the 3, but having more than 1-0 is not only cloggy, but it kind of interacts in a bad way with Assault Mode Activate. And then the second search card is actually Fire Formation Tenki. This card basically is just continuous, and it lets you add 1 level 4 lower Beast Warrior type monster from your deck to your hand when it's activated. So basically it's your main searcher for Sniper or Beast in case you need whichever one you need. Typically you're going to go for Sniper, because if you need to search something, you're going to go for Sniper and then just immediately go into Psi-Reflector, because then Psi-Reflector can just search out Beast and use Beast effect to discard itself to get out the Assault Mode Activate. And it also has the secondary effect of all Beast Warrior type monsters you control gain 100 attack, and you can only use 1 Tenki once per turn. And then moving on to these special cards, we have 2 Instant Fusion. Basically this card is just for getting out our 2 fusions, which we can immediately sacrifice into Linkuriboh and get them immediately in the grave for later use. So basically Instant Fusion, pay 1000 life points, special summon a level 5 or lower fusion from your extra deck, but it can't attack and is destroyed during the end phase. And then we also have 1 Emergency Teleport, special summon a level 3 or lower Psychic monster from your deck, but banish it during the end phase of this turn. Again, doesn't apply if it's in the grave. And then we've got 1 for 1, and 1 Monster Reborn. Now you might ask why Monster Reborn and not another Assault Mode 0, just because we can't really special summon the Assault Modes back from the graveyard. True, but more often than not you're going to be using Monster Reborn on either Psi-Reflector or one of the Synchros. And then into the traps we have the 3 Assault Mode Activate, the key to the engine of this deck, tribute 1 Synchro monster, special summon 1 Assault monster, whose name includes a tributed monster's name from your deck in attack position. And then we've also got 1 Assault Counter. Now a lot of people said run Assault Reboot. I personally don't really find Assault Reboot to be more useful than Assault Counter, mainly just because you don't really want to sacrifice Assault Mode 0 or Assault Mode Stardust for Assault Mode Red Eyes. Or not Red Eyes, Red Dragon. And going into that TG Halberd, I agree is useful, but TG Halberd, again, not as useful as it was a while ago. I agree, it did have some usefulness a while ago, but as of now, it's kinda lost that. It's kinda not as good as it used to be. So basically what this does is you can activate it only while you control an Assault Mode monster, and it lets you negate the activation of a spell card, trap card, or effect monster's effect negate it and destroy it. So essentially it's like a counter to counters, that if you have, say, Stardust Dragon Assault mode and you don't have something to counter like a Solemn Judgment or a Solemn Strike, then you can just use Assault Counter to counter that trap, since it is a counter trap. And it does also just kind of work as more control, that it lets you keep Stardust Dragon Assault mode on the field for a little longer and just straight up negate someone else's effect before you even have to do anything. And then moving on to the last two trap cards on the deck, we've got 3 back to the front. Basically just your kind of Reborn card that lets you target one monster in your graveyard and special summon it in defense mode. So it's essentially just kind of special summon from your grave to use for Assault mode activate, which most of the time is what you're going to do. Most of the time you're going to be using this to kind of just use on Stardust and bring it back just to activate the secondary Assault mode. And then of course, 3 Infinite Impermanence. I don't really think I need to explain this at this point. This card's been out long enough and it's been used in so many decks that I'm pretty sure everyone knows what it does. And then moving on to the extra deck, we've got, of course, 3 Stardust Dragons. Of course, if we're going to be running 3 Stardust Dragon Assault mode, we're going to need 3 Stardust Dragon. I'm going to explain this one just because I know there are some people that don't actually know what Stardust does somehow. So basically, it is just a Dragon Wind level 8 Synchro with 2500 attack and 2000 defense, and all it needs is 1 or more non-tuner monsters, and during either player's turn, when a card or effect is activated that would destroy a card on the field, you can tribute Stardust, negate that activation, and destroy that card, and if the effect of Stardust wasn't negated during the end phase, he can special summon himself back, just like Stardust Dragon Assault mode. So of course we are running 3 of him, and then we're also running, of course, the 1 Red Dragon Archfiend, just for Red Dragon Archfiend Assault mode. Basically, same deal as Stardust, Dragon Dark, 3000 attack, 2000 defense, level 8, and it only takes 1 tuner and 1 more non-tuner monsters, and after damage calculation, if it attacks a defense position monster, you can destroy all defense position monsters your opponent controls, and during the end phase, you have to destroy all the monsters that did not declare an attack this turn, but Red Dragon Archfiend has to be face up on the field for that secondary effect to resolve, which is kind of why Book of Moon used to be played in a couple Synchro decks to kind of just save people from Archfiend. And then moving on to the support Synchros, we've got 1 Formula Synchron. Really works in this deck just because of how many level 1s we're running. Basically, 1 tuner plus 1 or more non-tuner, level 2, Machine Light, 200 attack, 1500 defense, and when it is Synchro summoned, you can draw a card, and once per chain, during your opponent's main phase, you can immediately after this effect resolves, Synchro summon using Formula Synchron and some of the cards that you control. So you could Synchro summon into something like Shooting Star Dragon in your opponent's main phase during a chain. And speaking of Shooting Star Dragon, he is the next thing, and I've actually started running him just because I have found use for him. He does work out in a few situations, not a lot. Bear that in mind. He doesn't work in a lot of situations, but there are times where he can benefit you. So basically, it is a Dragon Wind, level 10, 3300 attack, 2500 defense, so even stronger than Assault Mode Activate, and it just takes 1 tuner Synchro monster and Stardust Dragon. And basically, Shooting Star Dragon has a bunch of effects, so I'll explain them. Once per turn, you can excavate the top 5 cards of your deck, shuffle them back in, and Shooting Star Dragon's maximum number of attacks per battle phase this turn equals the number of tuners revealed, which with this deck, you do actually have quite the potential to get a couple extra attacks with Shooting Star Dragon. And once per turn, during either player's turn, when a card or effect is activated that can destroy a card on the field, you can negate that effect. And of course, just like Stardust, if you negate it, you can destroy it, so essentially it's just Stardust's effect added on to Shooting Star, but you don't have to tribute it. So yeah, he does have a couple uses. I've not really gotten him out more than once in testing. I've only really gotten him out 1 time, and in that 1 time he did prove to be useful. He actually did almost win me the game until he actually got Raigeki. And then moving on to the last 3 support synchros, we've got 1 Cyberse Quantum Dragon. This thing's actually got more relevance now because there's more of an opportunity for you to use links with this deck. Not a huge opportunity, but it does work. So basically, it just takes 1 tuner plus 1 or more non-tuner monsters. It's a level 7 Cyberse Dark monster with 2500 attack and 2000 defense. And basically, while you control a link monster, your opponent can't target other monsters you control for attacks, and he can't target them with card effects except for Cyberse Quantum Dragon. So basically, everything your opponent does is directed right at Cyberse Quantum Dragon. And once per turn at the start of the damage step, if Cyberse Quantum battles an opponent's monster, you can return that monster to the hand, and Quantum can make a second attack. So it really is just that kind of, hey, I'm gonna protect everything, I'm gonna be the shield hero here for a minute, and I'm gonna get a double attack. if I have a Link in front of me. Or, not if I have a Link in front of me, but if I have a monster that I'm fighting. And he does work out more now just because not only do we have Psi-Framelord Lambda who got released, who's actually really good for this deck, but we also do have Linkuriboh. And Linkuriboh does have potential to be useful with Cyberse Quantum, you just have to time it right. And then we've also got Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, one of my favorite Synchron monsters. I honestly love Trishula. So basically what he is, he's a Dragon Water monster, level 9, 2700 attack, 2000 defense, and he takes 1 tuner plus 2 or more non-tuner monsters. So you actually do have to have 2 monsters, but there's a combo with Kinka-byo and Psi-Reflector that can just go straight into him, which is basically just summon Kinka-byo, use Psi-Reflector's effect, or use Kinka-byo to bring back Psi-Reflector, then use Psi-Reflector's effect to bring back one of the other monsters, but instead of raising its level to, or no, you do raise its level to 7, my mistake. You raise its level to 7, and then you have a level 1, a level 1, and a level 7. Level 9 immediately into Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. And when Trishula is synchro summoned, you can banish up to 1 card each from your opponent's hand, field, and graveyard, and the hand card is chosen at random. So essentially it just doesn't target. That's the other good thing about this, is it doesn't target, so you can basically just banish a monster from your opponent's grave, banish a monster from your opponent's field, non-targeting, and randomly get rid of something from their hand that could or could not be useful, which most of the time, Trishula seems to have a knack at picking out what's useful. And then we've also got one Psi-Framelord Omega just in here for the Psi monsters that you're not really going to see him that often, so I'm not really going to explain him, because most of the time you're not going to want to use him. And then moving on to the fusions, we have Thousand-Eyes Restrict, which, amazing card in this deck, just because there's been like 5 times where I've used it as a wall, and my opponent has not been able to do anything for like 5 turns until I manage to get out 2 Stardust Dragon Assault modes. So basically what he does is other monsters on the field can't attack or change their battle positions, and once per turn you can target 1 monster your opponent controls and equip it to Thousand-Eyes Restrict. And Thousand-Eyes Restrict's attack and defense become equal to that equipped monster's, and if Thousand-Eyes would be destroyed, then you can destroy the equipped monster instead. So it is a very good protective monster. But this is essentially the wall to pretty much every single kind of wall. And then we've also got Millennium-Eyes Restrict. This card, not really going to see as much. You're mainly going to be going for Thousand-Eyes Restrict because most of the time, whichever fusion you're going to be summoning is going to end up in the grave. So unless you have something to bring back like Thousand Eyes and you know your opponent's not going to be running something like Ash Blossom, or it's not really going to affect you, then you don't really need to go in Millennium-Eyes Restrict, but he does still help occasionally. So basically, Millennium-Eyes Restrict says once per turn, when your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can target one effect monster your opponent controls or in their graveyard and equip it to Millennium-Eyes Restrict, which works out because Millennium-Eyes Restrict kind of stops Ash Blossom because Ash Blossom has to send itself to the grave for its effect to resolve. And again, Millennium-Eyes gains the attack and defense of the monster equipped, and monsters with that equipped name cannot activate or resolve their effects. So it does really work out well as kind of just effect negation, but again, you have to find the opportunity to keep it on the field. And then moving on to the links, we've got one Linkuriboh, our little level 1 Link boy, that basically just there for that 1 turn, stopping an opponent's attack and changing it to 0. But it's also useful as kind of giving us that extra monster zone so we don't have to kind of just have Stardust sitting up there waiting and just waiting for that assault mode activate to be kicked off and kind of just blocking us from getting anything else. And of course, if it's in the graveyard and you control level 1, you can special summon it, which works out well with Kinka-byo, that if you use Kinka-byo to bring back Psi-Reflector and go into a Stardust, then you can just kind of Kinka-byo sacrifice for Linkuriboh, and then you have not only another Synchro, but you also have a level 1 or a Link 1 attack reducer. And then we also have Psi-Framelord Lambda. This card is so good for helping this deck. It's so much better than Beat Cop of the Underworld. Basically, it is a Psychic Light Link with Link 2, and it takes 2 monsters except for tokens. No tokens in this deck. And you can activate the effect of Psi-Framegear monsters while they're in your hand. Which is good, because that means that Psi-Framegear Gamma can activate while it's in the hand, and you have a monster on the field. And if a face-up Psi-Frame monster you control is banished except for in the damage step while you control Lambda, you can add a Psi-Framegear not Psi-Framegear, but Psi-Frame card from your deck to your hand, but you can only use each effect of Lambda once per turn. So it is kind of that limitation of once per turn, but it is still very beneficial in this deck, mainly just for the Psi-Framegear Gamma that most of the time the banish effect isn't really going to matter if you have Lambda on the field because you're just going to immediately Synchro, and it is just very good, not only for being a Link 2, but for giving you that access into your negation. And then of course we've also got one Knightmare Phoenix and one Knightmare Cerberus, just to kind of round off the links. So as promised, now I'm going to go into a few combos. The first combo you're going to use, you're going to need 6 cards in your hand. Like, this is going to be your opening first hand. This is the perfect draw that you can get with this deck. So you're going to need Assault Sentinel, you're going to need Assault Mode 0, you're going to need Stardust Dragon Assault Mode, you're going to need 1-for-1, you're going to need Kinka-byo, and you're going to need Back to the Front. So the first thing you do is you 1-for-1, send Sentinel to the grave, special summon Psi-Reflector, and then you use Psi-Reflector's effect to add Assault Beast to your hand, and then you can use Assault Beast's effect to discard it and add an Assault Mode Activate to your hand. And then after doing that, you immediately Psi-Reflector into a Stardust Dragon. It doesn't really matter which monster you use from the graveyard because neither of them have an effect that will kick off when they hit the field, and they're not really going to be staying around long enough to use either of their effects. So basically, you immediately go into Stardust using a 0, and then once you do that, you banish 0 from your grave in order to set Assault Mode Activate, and then you set another Assault Mode Activate and you're Back to the Front, and then you leave your turn off there. Now keep in mind, we already have one Stardust Dragon Assault Mode on the field. We're about to get another one. So basically what you do is, during your opponent's draw phase, after you've done all this shenaniganry, you use Back to the Front, bring back Stardust Dragon from your grave, and then you use one of the Assault Mode activates that you set. Now, we did set 2, and 2 Assault Modes on the field is important for this deck. You need 2 Assault Mode activates set right there for that combo. And basically, after you do that, and you sacrifice the Stardust with one of the Assault Mode activates, you're going to have the 2 Stardust Dragon Assault Modes, which is really hard to break through, just because Stardust Dragon's Assault Mode is a really good control card, just for the fact that it can basically break an entire combo in the span of 2 seconds. So then, after your opponent's turns ended and you've done all this shenaniganry with Stardust Dragon Assault Mode, and you basically shut them down for that entire turn and they're back on the field, what you do next turn is you use your Kinka-byo. So you summon Kinka-byo, use its effect, bring back Psi-Reflector, and then you use Reflector's effect to add a Beast, use Beast's effect, discard him to add another Assault Mode Activate, and then you use Reflector's effect to reveal the Activate, special summon out one of the monsters from the grave, and this time, instead of going into a Stardust Dragon Assault Mode, you're going to go into Red Dragon Archfiend Assault Mode. So you're going to Synchro into Red Dragon Archfiend, and use the Assault Mode Activate that you set your first turn to bring out Assault Mode. Now, there's a reason for this. After you do that, what you want to do is you want to sacrifice your Kinka-byo into Linkuriboh. So then what you do is you enter your battle phase, and you attack with Stardust Dragon, and you take out any monster that may have. If you have to use both Stardust Dragons, go ahead and do that. And then, once you do that, you let Red Dragon Archfiend Assault Mode attack, and once he does that, when his effect kicks off, instead of letting it go off, you use Stardust Dragon Assault Mode's effect to tribute and negate Red Dragon Archfiend's Assault Mode, and then once that happens, Red Dragon Archfiend Assault Mode's effect kicks off, and you get to special summon Red Dragon Archfiend from your graveyard. Now you can see where this goes. You've already used your 2 Stardust Dragons to attack, or you've already used one and you still have another, which means you now have 6,300 attack points to hit your opponent with. So yeah, this combo really does just wreck your opponent's board, mainly just because you get 2 almost essentially invincible control monsters, and you get basically an entire board clear in the span of 3 turns. And then we also have a secondary combo that is a little similar, but not entirely. So what you're going to need for this one, and there's a little more variation for this one, you're going to need Fire Formation Tenki, you're going to need Gamma, you're going to need 0, you're going to need Stardust Dragon Assault Mode, you're going to need a Reflector, and you're going to need Impermanence. Now, this combo is a little reliant on your opponent having Ash Blossom, so you do kind of want to hope your opponent has Ash Blossom in order for you to use this combo. So the first thing you do is you activate Fire Formation Tenki, you use Tenki's effect to add a Beast, and if your opponent uses the Ash Blossom, which you want to hope they do, then you can use Gamma's effect to negate the Ash and special summon it and Driver. And then once you've done that, you have a Synchro. So then what you do after that is you go into Stardust, you use 0 to get out Stardust Dragon Assault Mode, and then you normal summon Psi-Reflector, because Psi-Reflector's effect can activate if it's normal or special summoned. It doesn't have to be just special summoned. So then after you get out the Assault Mode, you use Zero's effect, banish it, set another activate, and then you normal summon Psi-Reflector, use Psi-Reflector's effect, add Sentinel, and then you bring back Beast with Reflector after discarding it to add an Assault Mode activate. And then once you do that, Reflector and Assault Beast are on the field, ready to be Synchro Summoned into Stardust Dragon again. So you're going to Synchro Summon into that Stardust, and thanks to Assault Mode 0, we now have an Assault Mode activate just ready to use. So we use it, and now we immediately have, once again, 2 Stardust Dragons on our field, which is essentially just board breaking already, but now the Impermanence or Assault Mode counter activates. So what you do is you can basically just set Impermanence or Assault Mode counter, either one. I like Assault counter better just because it negates everything. There are still uses for Impermanence though, because this deck doesn't have a lot of spell stopping. So then that's that board. You have now not only 2 Assault Mode, but you also have either an Impermanence or a counter that can basically just stop one of your opponent's things, and then you can still stop 2 more things with Assault Mode activate. Or not Assault Mode activate, Stardust Dragon Assault Mode. So yeah, this deck is amazing. I absolutely love it, and I love the fact that it is just absolutely making use of Stardust Dragon. That I missed my little starry boy. He needed this spotlight. He needed to just get in this area where he had the spotlight and he was able to just do his thing, and I'm glad he finally has that chance. So basically, this deck is amazing, it's fun, it's actually very able to hold up against a lot of competitive decks. I have actually kind of topped a couple of Sky Strikers, Cyber Dragons, quite a few decks with this Stardust Dragon Assault Mode build. And the best thing about it is it's relatively cheap. That if you want the cards in this deck, you're not going to be looking at over $100, save for 2 cards. There's only really 2 cards that push the price of this deck. Infinite Impermanence and Millennium-Eyes Restrict, because Millennium-Eyes Restrict is $33. Infinite Impermanence is $44. Everything else in this deck, if you go for the cheapest version, is below $10. Most of the time it will be even below $5, which means at most you're going to be paying like pocket change for this deck. Like you're essentially, without Impermanence and Millennium-Eyes Restrict, you're only going to be paying about $80 to $100 to get the main parts of this deck, and then you just have 4 cards that you need to get, and you're done. That's it. That's the entire deck built. So it's relatively cheap, and I just absolutely love that. To finally have a deck that is just cheap as to use in Yu-Gi-Oh! And it uses my favorite monster. How coincidentally aligned is that? Regardless, I am going to leave this video here. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, Banlist going to be in the description. Music absolutely going to be in the description because I use nothing without giving credit. And the deck list will also be in the description in case you guys missed some stuff. I'll also link to my last deck profile video, which was Blue Eyes, and I will link to the last Stardust Dragon Assault Mode deck profile because you can see some of the replays there in action. Regardless, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, you can slap the like button as always, and I will see all you beautiful people in the next one.